Okay, good morning. I haven't vlogged in a while, so I feel like it's gonna take me a little bit of time to just like get into this. But basically, if you follow my Instagram and you saw my stories, this like caramelized peach pie dessert, today's the day. We're gonna finalize the recipe and we're gonna make, or I'm gonna show you how to make it. It's a super classic Swedish dessert. I mean, it's a pie, but the way of making it is very common in Sweden. It's called knäckig pie. And basically what it is, instead of doing like a crumble topping, we kind of make like a mixture on the stove with butter, syrup, oats, flour, sugar, and then we pour that over the peaches or whatever fruit that you're using. And then in the oven, it gets really crispy and caramelized. And it's personally my favorite way of making a pie, so I'm excited to show you how to do it. But before we get into it, I'm excited to be vlogging again. I haven't made a vlog in a while. I keep meaning to be really consistent with it, but then I keep having things that come up in the summer, and so far it's been like the best summer ever, honestly. Like, I went to Sweden to see my family, I went to Ireland for a wedding, and then I came back, and then I got this amazing opportunity to go to Paris for a week with my sister, which was incredible. And yeah, I'm so grateful for that whole trip. It was insane, so much good food. But now I'm finally back in New York, and because my last day at Food 52 was when I was in Sweden, I haven't really had any time in New York to really like focus and get into a good work routine and figure out my schedule and whatnot. So this is really the first week that I'm like trying to plan everything out and trying to be more consistent with my filming schedule, and also trying to figure out how many videos a week I can actually make. Not only on YouTube, I'm only gonna do one on YouTube, but then like on social, how many recipes I can develop a week, which I think my max is 2, and even that's a lot. But I think I'm gonna be actually doing a lot more Swedish recipes that aren't just mine, so that I can keep creating content without constantly having to develop something new. So yeah, I feel like I'm starting to get into a good flow. As I said, we're gonna make this pie. I'm excited because it's almost like peak peach season. Probably have to wait a few more weeks. Like, they're best in August. They're still really good, and I feel like it's good to like have this recipe for then when peach season is in peak. Guys, sometimes I say something and I'm like, that does not make sense. What am I saying? Right now I'm just sitting by the computer and I'm writing down, or I'm doing some edits to my recipe. I have my full recipe listed out here that I wrote the other day, and I've already added it to my computer because what I've noticed is sometimes it's like if I cook something and develop the recipe and I write the notes, I have to like motivate myself to then like go back into the computer and then write it. So I've been forcing myself to, as soon as I finish cooking the recipe, go straight to my computer and write it down, because then also I feel like there's so many notes in my head about like, okay, maybe, you know, it deflated a little too much, like I need to add less sugar, things like that that are very top of mind that I feel like I forget to write in my notebook. That is, it's easier if I just do it right after and then I have it on there, so I don't have to worry about going back to the computer and typing it out and like taking that extra time. I made a version of this pie a bunch of different times, like with apples or rhubarb, but I feel like usually then I'm like, in the past I've just used someone else's recipe, and to develop my own, I was kind of skimming the Swedish websites on their recipes, and then I kind of wrote down something that I thought made sense in terms of like what I wanted, and then I'll obviously kind of converted it into like an American recipe, because in Sweden everything is in deciliters and grams, although I do like to use grams in all my recipes too, just for accuracy's sake. So that's what I did the first time, and my notes after the first test was that, well, first of all, I think my oven turned off after I put it in initially, so it was in there with like medium heat for probably 20 minutes. So it kind of got a weird start to the cook time. So then when I actually took it out, it was very crispy on the top, but not super baked throughout the center, I guess, or underneath. So that's something that I'm changing. And I think I also made it a little bit too liquidy. So I went back, looked at a few different recipes to see kind of what their ratios were in terms of flour to butter and sugar and whatnot. I did also feel like it could have used a little bit more sugar. So what I did, I increase the flour amount from 3/4 of a cup to 3/4 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons, because a whole cup felt like kind of too much. And then I decreased the baking powder a little bit, and then what else did I do? Oh, I took away 1 tablespoon of butter too. And I'm like, I don't know if I need to add more sugar. I feel like I'm already doing 3/4 of a cup, and then there's also corn syrup, so I feel like I might be okay. Because then I also serve this with vanilla ice cream, so I don't want it to be overly sweet, and also I don't add any sugar to the actual peach filling, I guess. So that's why I feel like maybe I could get away with using a little bit more sugar, but TBD. Also, I forgot to say welcome to another episode of Afternoon Fika, because that is what this series is called. And again, fika is the Swedish tradition of like taking a break in the day to have some coffee and a sweet treat, and it's obviously my favorite tradition. And so this series is all about like baking Swedish classic and like less classic desserts. But I think I've kind of finalized the recipe so far, and I don't think I need to look at any more like inspo pics or videos or anything. I feel like I have it pretty down. So I'm gonna go get all my ingredients and preheat the oven to 350, and yeah, I guess start baking. Okay, what I love about this recipe is that it doesn't require that many ingredients. I mean, it's really just like a normal kind of crumble recipe. So we got some oats, and then we need some sugar, flour, baking powder, although you technically don't need baking powder if you don't have it. And you could also either bake this in a shallow baking dish or a deep tart dish or a regular pie plate, but I am using this beautiful little Movial. I can never remember how to say it correctly, but this little baking dish. So it's not huge. I would say this is probably the equivalent of like a regular 9-inch pie dish, I'd say. And then the only kind of slightly different ingredient that we're using is corn syrup. In Sweden, it's just called light syrup, and it's a little bit different than corn syrup. I can't remember exactly what the difference is at the top of my head, but in any Swedish recipe that calls for dark or light syrup, I just use light or dark corn syrup. It's like pretty much the same thing in a way. I actually don't mind my kitchen. The only thing that's hard is storage. So right now I've been keeping my sugar and my flour underneath here, which actually works out really well because I'm constantly using it. So it's easy for me to just like grab it here rather than try to like grab it up there. And that cabinet is already so full. My dream would be to have those like slide out drawers where you have like a big bucket of flour and a big bucket of sugar. I feel like that would be so nice. Both brown and white. Although I guess I don't use brown sugar that much. You technically don't need a bowl for this recipe at all because we're gonna make the topping just in a saucepan. My grandpa lives in Guilford, Connecticut, and if you don't know, Connecticut has amazing peaches and amazing like peach farms that you can go pick your own peaches at. So every summer we make it a point to go out there to pick our own peaches, and last summer Lucas and I went and we got a bunch, and then we brought them home to New York, and then they went bad after like 2 days because you pick them and they're so ripe, so if you don't eat them or freeze them or use them immediately, they get too soft too quickly and go bad. So I was bummed because they're obviously expensive and they're so good. So I'm definitely gonna have to go back this year and kind of redeem myself a little bit. But for now, we just have peaches from Whole Foods or Wegmans, I think. So you're gonna need 5. These are pretty standard size peaches, nothing crazy. I wouldn't go larger than this unless you're gonna make more of the mixture or unless you have a bigger baking dish. I'm gonna give them a little wash and then I'm gonna cut them into some slices. The thing with peaches that aren't super ripe that's annoying is just trying to get rid of the seed. So I feel like with these less ripe ones, you kind of have to cut around it. And also, I find that it's fine to just, instead of cutting like wedges like that, I just go down like that. And then you just get, I feel like it's easier to get even slices, and it's also easier to slice. And then for the ones that you do kind of have to cut around the seed, once you get to this part, I like to still just like cut these pieces off and use it. You're not going to see any of the peach slices, so it doesn't matter what they actually look like. Just kind of add them to your baking dish as you go. The nice thing about baking with peaches is that they aren't that watery. Even when they're super ripe, they're still not going to release as much water as like a berry or even apples, I feel like. So I usually don't end up tossing these with any cornstarch. I feel like it always ends up being fine without. I think these peaches were actually a bit bigger than the first time I tested it, so I ended up taking away quite a few peach slices. I think this is probably the equivalent of like 1 peach. So it kind of depends on your baking dish or your pie plate. So I would say 3 to 4 peaches, honestly. So now that we have all our sliced peaches, we're gonna move on to the topping, and it could not be easier. I am using a scale. You can't see because the camera is angled a little too far up. I'm gonna add cup measurements in the recipe too, so you don't have to use a scale if you don't have one. So the way to make this is kind of like the same base almost as when you're making caramel in a way. So we're gonna start by melting together a little bit of butter. So I'm gonna do, oops, what's that? It's almost 90 grams. I'm gonna do 127 grams. Not quite there. I love using a scale so much. I feel like it obviously makes the recipe more accurate, but I feel like it also reduces cleanup. You don't have as many measuring spoons and measuring cups to wash, and also I feel like anytime you use a measuring cup and you put it into the flour, it always goes everywhere, so I like to just pour it out. Okay, then we're gonna add, I can't remember, okay, what did I have add oats, sugar, butter. Okay, we're gonna add the butter, which we did already, then add the sugar, cream, and syrup. Oh yes, we add cream too, I forgot to say that earlier. Okay, so I'm gonna add the cream first. So we don't need a lot of cream, just about 1/4 of a cup. So 56 grams. Okay, that was a little bit more, but that's okay. I'm gonna change the angle so you guys can see down a little bit. We're gonna go in with the corn syrup, and depending on your scale, it might be more accurate for you to measure the ingredients out before, but I feel like this is usually fine. Okay, that was also a little more, but as long as you're within a small range, a little bit less or a little bit more won't make a big difference. And then in with the sugar. With bags like this though, you do have to be really careful because it comes out super fast. You can easily end up adding way too much, and I've done that before. I don't want it to be too sweet, and sugar does make a big difference, so I'm actually gonna take away just a little bit, because it already has the syrup and the sugar. This is my all-time favorite ingredient, vanilla bean paste. You could use vanilla extract, in which case I would add it after baking so that so it doesn't just like burn off. But the vanilla bean, I like to cook it in with this because then it just releases more of its flavor. This is definitely way more vanilla than you actually need, but it does come out really fast, so I just ended up with more. So basically now we're gonna heat this until the butter is completely melted, and then I'm gonna add the oats and the flour. I almost never mix together the dry ingredients before adding it to the wet. I usually just add it all on top and then give it a little mix. But for something like this where I can't just measure directly into the bowl because I don't want to put the hot saucepan on the scale, I am just weighing it out before so I can just have it ready. And how much did I need again? Oops, a little too much. Perfect. I hear it bubbling in the back, so let's go take a look. The thing with my stove is the flame always blows this way, so this side is always a bit hotter. I put my measuring spoons in the dishwasher earlier, forgetting that I was gonna bake because I made a smoothie. So I'm just using a regular little teaspoon and kind of just eyeing it, but I think it's gonna be, I think it's about the same. Salt though is a little bit more specific, I think, but I think that should be enough. And again, the recipe is gonna be posted in the description below. I know I forgot to do that in the last video, like 2 weeks ago, but I promise I'm gonna be better about that moving forward. I'm just gently mixing that together. And then I'm gonna measure out some oats. Oats is another thing that I feel like I need to start getting at Costco because I use it all the time. And as much as I love Bob's Red Mill, this stuff is so expensive. Like oats, I feel like from here are like $8 sometimes, and you don't get a very big bag, even though they are good quality. The butter is fully melted. We're gonna add the flour, baking powder, and salt, and then also our rolled oats. Whoa, that is overexposed. Here we go. My stovetop is slightly uneven, so I kind of wish I could hold on to this at the same time as stirring, but I need to get the shot. You don't want to cook it for too long because then it's gonna get too dark in the oven before it's fully cooked, because then you would have already kind of caramelized it on the stovetop. So really just stir until it's combined and looks like this. Okay, I'm just gonna taste it to make sure that we don't need to add any more salt. Oh, it's hot. Okay, I'm actually gonna add just another pinch, just to help balance it out a little bit. I think that should be good. I don't think I need to taste it again. I think that should be fine. And now you can either dollop it onto the peaches or just pour it right on top like this. Just try to make sure to get it kind of like evenly over, because once it's on there, it's hard to really move. Oh, this thing is so heavy. And then kind of just spread it out to cover all the peaches. And it's also okay if some of the peaches kind of peek through, because it's still gonna kind of like bake over and caramelize on top. So it's fine. Okay, that looks delicious. Here's a better view. You can see that obviously not all the peaches are covered, but for the most part they are. And even that thin layer on them is gonna caramelize and kind of help cover them. This is now gonna bake at 350 for about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. But if you feel like it's getting too dark too quickly, you can either cover it with some tin foil, or you can also reduce the oven temperature a little bit, but not too much, and only at the end. But make sure to actually bake it for like 45 minutes, because if you take it out too early, the kind of like underneath parts of the dough or the mixture aren't gonna be fully cooked, and they're gonna be kind of like stodgy in a way. Oh no. Okay, so it's been 40 minutes. I think my oven is running a little cool today because it's not browning as quickly as it did the other day, which is weird. But let me show you. I think we have about 10 minutes left. Ooh, it looks, oh, whoa. Oh my God. My camera just steamed up so much. I don't want to go too close, but you can see it's bubbling. It's looking super good. Okay, I'm gonna close it before it gets too cold. Okay, the timer just went off. I ended up baking it for almost an hour. So take a look at it. If 45 minutes to 50 minutes isn't enough for you, then just keep going until it's super golden brown. It all has to do with your oven and the temperature and the airflow and whatnot, so they can kind of differ. You've probably heard me talk about my oven many times before, but it's an old gas oven, so sometimes it's not that accurate. But she looks really good though, so I'm gonna take her out. Oh my god. This, I will say, looks better than the first one, even though the first one also did look really good. Yum. I guess we won't know until we cut into it, but I think I made the right choice by increasing the flour a little bit because it looks a little bit more like an oat topping, the way it should. Also, even though you could definitely dig in right away and serve it immediately, the part of the point of this recipe is for the top to be a little bit like crunchy and chewy. So I would let it cool for probably 10 minutes or so until it's not like super hot, still warm obviously though, because we want warm pie, but just enough for the top to kind of like harden a little bit. Here it is, and you can see that most of the peaches are actually covered. There are still a few slices that are kind of poking through, but I actually kind of think it looks nice. Okay, I'm gonna get a little plate. This is always one of the hardest choices, picking out a plate, because it does make a big difference in terms of how the dish shows up in the photo. I don't have that many to choose from, unfortunately, but this is the one I used in the original photo for the test, so this is the one I'm gonna use for the final because I thought it looked nice, and also it's one of the only kind of like small bowls I have. And then we also got some Haagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream. So good. You could serve it with whipped cream, but I do think this is better with ice cream, personally. Do you hear that? So good. That looks so good. And guys, I finally got a ice cream scooper. Van Leeuwen was doing a partnership with Material Kitchen. I love them both. Material Kitchen, I actually have a lot of stuff from them. I have a cutting board. I have some knives that I love. The cutting boards are amazing. It's so much more satisfying using an actual ice cream scoop instead of like just a regular spoon. Whoops. Because obviously you can get like a perfect little ice cream scoop. Like, where do I put it? I think over here. Is it gonna come out? Wow. That looks crazy. I need to quickly go take a photo before it melts. That looks so good. Yum, I'm so excited for this. Want to make sure, oh, okay, look at this. See, this is what I mean by it kind of hardening a little bit. It's kind of hard because it's not focusing, but this is like a nice caramelized oat piece. Mmm, that is so good. I also feel like this is easier than a normal crumble because, I don't know, you don't have to like use your hands to mix anything together. It's literally just melting everything together on the stovetop and then adding it to the peach. Guys, this is phenomenal. It's always so interesting whenever I test a recipe because even though the first version was really good, this one is definitely just a bit better. And I didn't even make that many tweaks. I just added a little bit more of a few ingredients and it made such a difference. I'm excited for you guys to make this. One of my favorite things is seeing the recreations that you guys make. I love when people tag me on Instagram, or if you subscribe to Substack and you have the chat, then you can also ask me any questions in there. I'm super on it in terms of Substack. I feel like I check it all the time. And send me a photo in there if you make it. And I hope you guys enjoy.